Let's talk about starting generators. We have a pair of Northern Lights 30 kilowatt generators on board. These are purely mechanical engines. There's no ECM or engine control module. There's no microprocessor. There's no software. It's all mechanical. The fuel pump is mechanically controlled. The start sequence is mechanically controlled through a series of relays. There's 5 relays in total, and they fire off one by one in a sequence with delays for each step of the way. One of the steps is to engage the starter, and then once the engine starts, it disengages the starter. The relays themselves are controlled by timers, and the timers are purely mechanical. So coming from a software world, you might use a sleep or an await, an async await type thing to do delays. But in the mechanical world, how do you do such a delay? So it turns out you use a purely mechanical device that uses an air vacuum to control the delay. So this is a delay timer that sits on top of a contactor, or a relay basically. And I've unscrewed it so you can open it up. And in here you see a little air diaphragm. So here's a better view of this delay timer. Now this is a 0 to 30 second delay timer. I can turn this dial here and control the delay. On the back is this air diaphragm. And let's see, I've got it set up right now to about a 3 second delay. Let me change that to around a 1 second delay. So that's a 1 second delay. Now if I come over here and I push this down, that little thing will slowly rise up, and it takes about a second to fully rise up. So that is your 1 second delay. If I come over here, I can dial this up to say 3 seconds, and let's push it again. It now rises up much slower. In fact, it takes 3 seconds to rise up. Now the reason you want a delay is, for example, maybe you want to run the starter for a maximum of 10 seconds, and if it doesn't catch, you want it to go ahead and turn off. So that's a good example of a delay, and it's being mechanically controlled. So by turning that dial, I'm basically changing the size of a hole that is allowing air into this diaphragm through a vacuum. And that's a purely mechanical way to control a timer. I thought that was so clever. So we're in the engine room now, and I'm going to come over and we're going to look at the starboard side generator. So this is a John Deere 4267 diesel engine. It runs at 1200 RPM. It's got a 30 kilowatt electrical head attached to it. So at 1200 RPM, this can generate 30 kilowatts of power. It's kind of interesting. This is a Northern Lights generator powered by a lugger engine. And the lugger engine, in this case, is using a John Deere 4267 block. So there's 3 companies involved here. The company that makes the engine itself, John Deere, the company that marinized it, Lugger, and then the company that made a generator out of it by putting the electrical head, and that's Northern Lights. Somehow they managed to keep that all together. I found manuals for this. I actually emailed Northern Lights, and they sent me a giant PDF that's a manual. And it's an old manual, so it's really not an electronic document. Someone took the time to scan in the entire 370-page manual, and it's a scanned-in version of the document as a PDF. There's a pair of these Northern Lights generators, and this is the port side. So you get to see what the other side of the generator looks like. So let's take a look at where that delay timer comes in. This is the control panel, the old mechanical control panel for this Northern Lights generator. And to start this up, we need to first turn on this main switch that connects the start batteries to the control panel. Then we can come over to the control panel and provide power to the control panel. And then we press this start button here, and this will start the sequence of the relays to actually start the generator. So we'll press this. There's about a 10-second delay. And it starts up. And you can see it started right up. So this time let's do the same thing, but we'll go ahead and open this panel, and we will take a look at the relays back here and see how they're working. So here's the 5 delay timers and the 5 relays. I keep calling them relays, but they're really contactors, just like on a home air conditioner. These are going to fire off one by one, and I'll just reach under here and hit that same start button, and we can watch the little chick, chick, chick as it goes. Now we're waiting on this crank, which has a Now, for example, if I were to remove one of these delay timers so that something in the sequence didn't actually complete, and then I try to start it, it doesn't start because something went wrong in the sequence, and eventually it will alarm out. Come on, let's see. Oh, there we go. So I hit the stop button, reset that alarm. So that's what the relays are doing for this timer, for this start sequence. And these are all just delay modules on top of these contactors. So the reason I care about all this relay, delay timer, contactor stuff is because the port side generator is having some problems starting. I basically have to trigger the starter relay with my finger to engage the starter, and then once it stops I have to trigger it again or release it so that I can disengage the starter. You don't want the starter to stay engaged after the engine started, and I have to do that with my finger right now. And so I'd rather the finger not be involved in the generator start-stop process. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on. At first I thought it was the timer module on top of the contactor, but now I actually think it might be the contactor itself. Now that little timer module, it's basically plastic and that rubber diaphragm like you saw, but the thing costs $200 new. Really just amazing. So I really want to try to figure out what exactly is going on before replacing something that actually might not be the issue. Creamy, what are you doing? Creamy, could you get away from the side? That's dangerous. Creamy, I know you stay on your tippy toes. You on your tippy toes? Anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully I'll do another video where all of that is completely solved and I can just hit the start button to get that generator running. Thanks again. Bye. Well, I spoke too soon. I kept fiddling with it, and let's take a look at the result of the fiddling. Port side generator is having a start problem. So I'll show you how I'm getting around that right now. I'll just turn this battery switch on. I'll come over here. I've opened this panel. I'll turn the control panel on. And you can see here I've removed one timer and I've taken the top off of it so I can now control it with my finger just by pushing things. And I'm going to go ahead and start the sequence here. And this guy never fires, so I will start it with my finger. And then I turned it off. I don't know if you could hear, but when I said I turned it off, it really didn't turn off. The starter was still engaged. I had to shut it off by basically killing the power. So I think I just figured out something that's going to help until we get the problem truly solved. I had been thinking this was the problem. This is the contactor or relay that actually engages the starter. But it turns out this particular contactor is not getting power to the coil the same way that the one in the working generator is. So maybe the issue is really this contactor. But what I figured out is I can manually engage this contactor by pushing this. And then once the engine starts, I can manually engage this and it turns off the starter. So I'll go ahead and try that right now. I'm going to start the start sequence. I'm going to engage the starter. then disengage the starter. So you have to disengage manually. So what normally happens is once it senses that the generator is producing power, probably via the alternator, this particular contactor engages and it shuts off this contactor to disengage the starter. So I just have to do those two things manually and it works. A hell of a lot easier than trying to remove this and fiddle with whatever's behind it. Anyway, that's MacGyver version 2 for starting the port side generator. So it is reasonable to ask why I'm trying to jury rig this instead of fixing it properly. And I will have an electrician out to fix this properly. But we just had a bunch of generator work done with the heat exchanger and coolant and pumps and belts and all this stuff. And the guy is coming out, was supposed to come out today to do a long run of the generator and make sure all of that's fine. But I couldn't reliably start it. So he's coming back on Monday, and I need to be able to reliably start it by Monday, and I couldn't get anyone out here on such short notice. So now at least I can start it. We'll have the generator guy really confirm everything works, and then I'll have an electrician out here to fix it for real. Well, thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll do another video once we have this fixed for real, and I will let everybody know what the actual problem was. And we'll just push the button and have it start without any jury rigging. See you next time.